All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the presentation tonight. Firstly, I just wanted to thank Highview, obviously for having me, and I really appreciate the relationship I've got with Highview. Obviously, great accountants, and we've been using them ourselves for a number of years. So, yeah, but just a bit of a background on myself. I've been around the traps for a long time now. I'm 32. I've been interested in technology from probably the age of 12 or 13, back when Dad was telling me that the IT department at his work was not happy with me. I was constantly breaking his work computer, and they just said, "Mark, you need to keep your son away from your work computer." So I guess I started out breaking things at a young age, and Mum, in the end, ended up getting me a computer. She was a single mother at the age of 13, and that's pretty much when my technical journey began, and I really got heavily involved with a number of things at an old age online. At a young age online. I was generating thousands of dollars a month from Google ads at the ripe old age of 13 through the websites I'd built. I was also using those funds to buy items off eBay and resell those at school for a profit. So I guess you could say I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I then got into the printing industry, and this was after my online business sort of fizzed out, and that's a story for another day. And did a printing apprenticeship, and basically at the age of 25, 26, decided that I had enough of printing, and I started Modern Visual Business Growth Solutions. So if anyone's interested in a bit more information about myself, there's a bit of history there on our website, which is modernvisual.com.au. Just to give everyone a bit of a rundown of Modern Visual Business Growth Solutions. So we started out in 2014 as a hosting and web design business that quickly transitioned into providing social media management for clients. That was due to opportunities that I guess presented themselves to us. We then branched out into branding and strategy, and in the end we ended up becoming what you call a full service agency. So what that meant was we were trying to be everything to everyone, and that just simply wasn't really going our way. So what we've done is niched into more of a systems approach to the market, and obviously that's what tonight's presentation is about. The systems approach means we're basically helping companies with the 4 key systems that they would use or have in their business, which again is what tonight's presentation is about. We'll save some questions time for the end of the presentation. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to either pop them in the chat and then we can all chat about them at the end. The presentation will go for roughly an hour tonight. Happy to go a little bit over if you guys want to. Otherwise, we'll try and keep it a tight agenda. But yeah, I'll get stuck into it. So looking at a business, there's typically 4 key systems that a business would have. And those 4 systems that a business would have would be your website. You would then have marketing and sales systems. You would then have your project management, your production or implementation system, and then you would have a feedback system. Feedback system isn't as common as it should be. But these are typically the 4 systems you would want to have within your business. Now, these systems can be done at all different levels. They could be done manually. They could be done using an IT solution or an online solution, a piece of software. Every business will have this system in place, but not every business will be doing it in a really efficient or, I guess, high-end or best practice way. So we'll dive into this. There's also other areas of focus as well. Besides your 4 key systems, there's obviously like add-ons to that. So you might have like your Office 365 email or your Google Mail or traditional email. You might have a portal for your clients. You'll obviously have your accounting software like Xero. You might have like a HR, like a procedures system that also could be offline. It might not be an online system. There's also other various systems that your business might have in place as well. Even Facebook and social media, and even if you're doing anything on Google, there, I guess what you class as a system as well. If you were to categorize all those together, we'd call that like an internet traffic system, which is directing people to your website from various sources, whether it be online or offline. Just some boxes to tick in your business with your system. So these are the things that we believe are quite important. So obviously you want all of the systems in your business, considering those 4 key systems and other systems. So again, your website, your marketing and sales systems, your production or project management system or implementation system, and your feedback system. You want all of those systems talking to one another. Ideally, a client would go on a perfect journey and they would funnel through all of those systems seamlessly and in harmony. And then also, obviously, there's those secondary systems like your accounting software and stuff like that. Ideally, you would have those talking or integrated to all of your other systems as well. You could almost think of this as having like a super system in your business. These are also traditionally referred to as like an ERP system. So some of you might have heard of like SAP or SAP. That's, I guess, like a large ERP system you would use to run your entire business. The beauty of what's available these days is, I guess, all these different systems that can all talk to one another through integration. You also want these systems to be quite seamless and easy to use for everybody involved. So whether it be your clients or your staff, these systems have to be intuitive. They have to be, I guess, presented in a really easy to use fashion. People shouldn't have to be asking questions about how they actually work. They should just be good enough where they do their job, and the appropriate person in your business or your client shouldn't have to, be trying to fumble their way or work their way through these systems. That's pretty critical to get the efficiency gains. Systems also need to be specialized for the task at hand. So I guess looking at, again, the fact that you can have an all-in-one system like an ERP or a SAP or something like that, or a custom system that you've had built. There's teams of people out there and companies that they do what they do really, really well. And the beauty of what's available now, again, the fact that you can connect all these systems together, it makes sense to actually use different systems that are built by teams that are amazing at what they do and in their niche, and then use all that knowledge to, again, create a super system within your business that runs your entire business from start to finish. Another thing to consider as well is you want to make sure, obviously, that the data is safe for yourself, your business, and your clients, including your staff. And you also want to make sure that there's backups in place. These are all the questions that you need to ask if you are exploring different systems. A lot of people use Xero, but a lot of people probably don't even know whether Xero has backups of your data. These are just things to consider and keep in mind when you are looking at different systems for your business. When you're sort of looking at systems to implement as well, you want to look at what the biggest gap is, or what's causing you the most pain in your business. Is it your website? Are you lacking sales systems? Are you struggling to get automated feedback from your clients? Is your accounting software no good? These are all the questions you ask when you're thinking about where do I start with a system in the business, also a digital system. And that's where you would start, putting your attention. You also want to weigh up what the return on investment is when deciding on a system as well. And you want to make them work hard for you and your team. So you wouldn't introduce a system in your business if it was going to make your life harder or more cumbersome or involves more work. The reason you would put a system in place is to make your lives easier, including your staff and your clients. So we'll move on. Another thing I wanted to mention on systems as well is throughput. So throughput is, imagine, like a tap running. Your clients should be coming in at one end and falling off the other end at the same rate. You don't want to have bottlenecks in your system. That's obviously going to lead to bank-ups. It's going to lead to problems for your reputation, for your staff, your clients. It's real messy. So what I always say to people is, always consider the throughput of your system that you put in place, or systems. You really want to make sure that you're measuring and assessing the rate that people are coming off. It's, imagine the probably a bad example, but the Holden production line. And imagine the cars were banking up at the windscreen wiper part of the production line. That would not be a pretty sight for Holden, because obviously that would just cause that conveyor belt or that production line to halt and build up. Your business could probably be seen in the same light. So the first sort of main system I wanted to talk about was websites. This is, a big part of your business. A lot of people say, do I even need a website these days? Yes, you do. It's very important no matter what you do. If anyone want to argue with me on that, then I'm here to do that. But you can't just see your website as this pretty thing that sits online to represent your business. That is a big part of it, which I'll get into. your website really needs to function, and it really needs to do a really good job at what it's meant to do. So looking at your website, there's a number of key things that you would want to have in place. Obviously, a clean and modern design, something that's trustworthy, something that is easy to use and intuitive. Navigating the website needs to be really simple. You also want to make sure that the website isn't designed for you. It needs to be designed for the ideal clients that you're trying to attract to your business. So if you're spending money on advertising or marketing to get people to your website, you want to make sure that, I guess, it's attracting the right types of clients and it's detracting the clients that you don't want. And that's going to come through having the right type of content on your website, the right language used on your website. And what we even commonly see is if we change the copy or the copywriting or the content on a website, they can have a dramatic effect on the amount of ideal clients you get versus not. We've changed copy on a site, left the design the same, and we've seen a big uptake in a certain type of client versus, getting all sorts of different types of clients. So that's something to really think about. The site obviously has to work flawlessly on all devices. Now, what I recommend, if you already have a website and you're building a new one and you have access to your analytics, you can see how predominantly people spend their time on your website through what devices. So if you find that 80% of your visitors are using a mobile, well, it's a no-brainer to consider doing what they call mobile first design. Mobile first design is where you actually design your site on a mobile, and then the secondary to that would be on a desktop or tablet. So that's really dependent on your industry. If you're working with a lot of councils or schools, as an example, then it's going to make sense that people are probably going to be on their desktop computer or laptop. Whereas if you're in a fashion label online, you're probably going to have a bunch of 21-year-old girls on their mobile phone trying to buy from you. So that's the thought process to think of when you're designing your website. Most people just go for the desktop only version. If you can afford to do both, as in design both at the start and plan them out that way, perfect if you've got the budget. However, always consider the device that you're most likely to have your users using when you're designing your site. You also want to provide ways for people to become a lead as fast as possible. So a lead doesn't just mean getting all of their details. A lead can also be simply getting someone to subscribe or opt in with an email address. That's something that I'll get into a little bit later in my presentation. But you want people to actually have things to do. So a lot of websites don't even have buttons throughout the site telling people to take action, whether it be call now or get more info or download our guide or whatever it may be. Really big part that's missing from a lot of websites is allowing people to take action. It's almost like you're not asking them to do anything. So that's a big one. Again, any questions anyone has, feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll bank those up for the end. Just to expand a bit more on generating leads from your website, you obviously want to ensure that if you're doing blogs on your website, which I highly recommend, you have an opt-in on those blogs. So an opt-in is a chance for people to download something of value in exchange for their email address. So you can either, again, depending on the person's intent, and the intent means what is the topic of your blog that they're reading. If it's very much about your services, why you're the best choice, then you would ask for more details. Whereas if it's more of an awareness piece, so if you're a signwriting company and you've done an article on branding or a blog on branding, then they're not ready to actually give you all their details and sign up for what you do. They might just be learning about branding, but your blog is actually convincing them that signage is a big part of branding. So at that stage, you're just making them aware that you exist as a potential choice for branding. They've, say, Google search branding. You would only ask for an email address at that point. And I'll get into a little bit later what you can actually do with an email address on its own. You want to make sure with your website you're being helpful, you're not being salesy. A lot of people go in for the buy now, call us now, yada, 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 which is okay if they're on particular content that relates to that. But you also want to be helpful throughout your process as well. People will buy from you if they trust you, and they will trust you because you've been helpful to them. Through that help, you've proven that you're an expert at what you do, and it would be a no-brainer for them to actually engage your company. So people don't want the hard sell anymore. People love to buy, but they hate being sold to. So always consider being helpful throughout your content. you want to cater your blogs, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, to all parts of the customer journey. So another example I could use, you could imagine a roof restoration company. Now they do roof restorations, but they might do a blog on their website that says 10 ways to increase the value of your home in 2020. And one of the ways that you would do that is a roof restoration. So that's the awareness piece. Then you might also do a blog, 6 reasons that you would restore your roof. So that's consideration stage. So that's considering what you do. Then the decision stage is, let's say it's John Smith Roof Restorations. The decision stage is why John Smith Roof Restorations is the choice for roof restorations. Here's a case study on how we helped Carol and John increase the value of their home and selling through a roof restoration. So you've got different types of blogs and topics geared around the different parts of that buyer journey or that research phase that people go through. And that's going to get a lot more leads than if you were just doing blogs about what you do. You also want to make sure your blogs are in the right format. So you want to make sure that, I guess, they're, how would you describe it? I guess they're like a predictable sort of, they've got like a pattern in them. You want to make sure that they're being read by Google. So you want to make sure the heading tags are in place. You want to make sure the meta tags are in place. And there's a lot of software out here that takes the thinking out of that for you. So that's something that, again, if anyone wants any help with that, I'm more than happy to point them in the right direction. But you just want to create that system in your business where you've got something like Google that's ranking your blogs over time. You're building up your blogs over time, so you've got more and more chance of getting rankings, and which leads to getting more leads. And that creates a predictable lead generation system for your business. So, leads on autopilot. There's companies out there, they've been blogging for years, and they've got thousands of leads organically coming through their website every month from Google, just because those blogs are sitting there and they've been done right from the so yeah, that's just something I would highly recommend people visit on their website. Now, attracting your ideal client, you want to think about what problems you solve for your ideal client. So identifying those in your copy is a really big way to actually get more genuine leads. You want to make sure that hierarchy of your content is in place. So think about the ideal client and what are the things that are going to be most important to them, and the structure and content on your pages of your website are in order of what you think those ideal clients would actually want to see. So what's most important to them? So if someone's buying a roof restoration, what's the number one thing they're concerned about? Could be price. If you're targeting upper Melbourne suburbs like Toorak, maybe price isn't the obstacle. So it all comes in your marketing strategy, which ties in with your website strategy. So you're basically getting people to stay on the pages because they're reading things in the order of what they would want to see first to last. You want to speak their language. So again, like I said, what are their biggest headaches? What are their challenges? What are their needs? What are they trying to solve? Everyone's like, people don't go on your website just to have fun. They are trying to solve a problem they've got. So how can you identify that and make sure that's front of mind, the first thing they see? Even the first part of your website, which is called your fold, that very first image that most people have when someone lands on your website, that one caption there is what really helps people grab their attention. Sorry, helps you grab people's attention, so you can see instantly, this is for me. That one caption that people first see on your site is so critical to getting people to stay on your website. And you also want to make sure, obviously, your images are relatable to the people you want that would be a lead. So, if your ideal client are retirees, well, you wouldn't have pictures of 35-year-old couples on your website. So a lot of people don't really put too much effort into the images on their website. You really want to make sure that the images are relatable to the people that you're trying to service. The next system I want to talk about was your sales and marketing system. So these systems are in order. So you think about it this way: someone's come through your marketing, could be a Facebook ad, could be Google, could be a TV ad, a radio ad, any sort of source of getting someone's attention. They're going to land on your website, and then once they've landed on your website, the next system they're going to flow into is your sales and marketing systems. And that's a little bit confusing because obviously radio, TV is marketing, but the type of marketing I'm referring to is called inbound marketing. And inbound marketing is automatic nurturing of leads. So someone's come from Google or Facebook, they've gone to your website, they've entered their information as a lead. Now the system will start to automatically drip content to that person and nurture them. So I'll get into that now. So again, once someone's landed on your website, they've viewed one of your blogs, or they've downloaded something from your homepage or whatever it may be, they might enter an email address. They'll get put into an automated piece of software, which is called inbound marketing or a drip funnel. There's a number of terms. This is where the system will email that person content over time. So they might get fed 4 or 5 different pieces of content via email over, say, a 3 or 4 week period. I guess the whole point of this system is to get people before they know they need you. So again, imagine that roof restoration company. They've downloaded a free guide on 10 ways to increase the value of their home when selling. They don't care that you're a roof restoration company yet. They just are looking to solve their problem. They've come from Google. They've landed on your blog. They've downloaded the content. You're now going to drip them content that gets them closer and closer to that goal of them realizing that they need to engage your company as a client. So they might go from 10 ways to sell your home when selling to, did you know that roof restorations are the #1 ways to increase the value of your home when you are selling, to we think you should go with John Smith Roof Restorations because we're #1 in Victoria. So talk to one of our sales reps right now. Here's a call to action. You can call us now, book a time, whatever. So they've gone from not knowing that you're the solution to considering you as a solution to engaging you as the solution. And that's where these funnels or these marketing systems can do that for you on autopilot. So your team is served up with warm leads on autopilot. You also want to set these up in a default way to start with, these funnels. But you've also got to consider that the customer journey is really crazy these days. People, it's not straightforward. People aren't just going to open every one of these emails. You might have to try and ping people 3 or 4 times before they actually are responsive. They might be moving house. They might be they might have gone on holiday. So a really good way I love to describe a customer journey that can be a bit crazy. Imagine a mother with a newborn baby on a website on her phone, a mobile phone on the couch. She's browsing your products. She puts it in the cart to check out on your online store. Baby starts crying, needs a bottle. She completely forgot that she'd even put her products in your online store's cart. So 2 days later, you retarget her with an ad on Facebook. She then goes, oh, I forgot about that. She then comes back, and then the baby starts crying again. She's then on the train, going to the city 2 weeks later. Again, this is all non-COVID related activity. Then she finally checks out when she's on the train because her baby's with her mum. So that's just one example of how crazy a customer journey can be these days. And you wouldn't really know this unless you were measuring or looking into this stuff. You've got to be, responsive to that with your online systems to make sure that you're measuring every step that your customers are taking from that initial hearing about you or finding you right through to that purchase. And you start to see patterns in this as well as time goes by, and you start to cater your online presence and your system to suit that crazy customer journey. So you put all the things in the mitigation strategies in place around that. Now, these inbound funnels that I've been talking about, there's little downloads that come along that journey that get emailed out, as I discussed. These little PDF downloads can also be used for your sales team. So if your sales team are having discussions with potential clients that might come to you through word of mouth or whatever it may be, these are really great assets for that as well. I mean, if you're a pool shop, people might typically spend 2 months researching pools before they actually commit to a sale. They might be looking at, what's the best type of pool? Is it fiberglass? Is it tile? How deep do I need it? How does it get installed? What does council permits look like? There's all these questions like that. So having these PDF assets available for your sales team, but also through that content dripping that goes out automatically, is a really helpful way to work with people while they're trying to solve their problem, which could be, bad problem to have, but trying to install a new pool in their house. You want to be that helpful business. You don't want to be that salesy business because people just aren't receptive to that anymore. Once you've got someone on your plate as an actual lead, so they've gone through your website, they've gone through your marketing funnels, and they're now ready to actually talk to you, how do you get the most out of, that situation with a sales system? And There's a number of sales systems out there that make your life as a salesperson a lot easier. It allows you to be, I guess, more personalized in your approach. There's systems out there that can actually tell you when someone becomes a lead, what pages of your website they've been on, and for how long. So if there's specific product pages that people have been on, you would know that. So you can tailor your approach and your response to that person around the product they've spent the most time looking at. There's even tools to send someone a PDF, and you can see how many minutes they spent on each page of that PDF. Again, so you can personalize your approach. You can also have tools where it'll tell you when someone's opened one of your emails. So you can strike while the iron's hot, and it's more relevant for them at the time that you're calling them. You can look at their information. So you can look at, I guess, how they came through social media. You can look at all those touch points in that customer journey, and you can tailor, again, your approach to that journey they've come on to get to this point. So you can see if someone's been looking at specific, items on your website or certain posts, or even if they came through an email marketing piece you've done, like a newsletter or something like that, you could see that. So it just gives you a bit more intelligence around the conversations you're having with people, and it's all about just being more helpful. As much as it's beneficial for the business using these systems to, I guess, big brother the lead or the prospect, it's only making them have a much better experience with your business, and again, trying to solve that problem. Now, as well, obviously all these systems are great at increasing the conversion rate of your sales activity. So, if you're not monitoring your conversion rate, so how many people are coming from your website converted into an actual customer, that's a really critical number to know, because that allows you to tweak your marketing or your website or whatever it may be to obviously get better results for your business. You can also do what's called lead scoring, where you would ask specific questions throughout that marketing automation process, so that the lead gets a score out of 10 by the time it gets to your sales team. And that's just going to mean that your lead is going to have a better experience with your sales team, because they're more likely to buy. So there's less friction in the buying process. So that's something that a system can do as well. So that's what we call a sales system, or a CRM. Next system I wanted to sort of cover was your production side of business. Now this can vary a lot. If you're manufacturing versus a pharmaceutical business, or you sell expensive watches or whatever it may be, there's going to be a different production process for different businesses. But I've tried to keep this as broad as I can. But the production system in your business is very much the doing part. So once someone's come to you, they've signed up as a customer, how do you fulfill their needs? So do you manufacture something? Do you deliver a service? Does something need to be mailed to that person from your warehouse? There's all these different ways that you would service someone. So I've kept this quite broad, but basically the key thing with fulfillment or production would be efficiency. So making sure you've got all the efficiencies in place within that process of your business. So some great points here. Sales information should automatically feed into your production system. So a lot of people have separate systems and they're not integrated. So that means that when someone signs on, that information has to be manually entered into a production system. Their name, their number, what job you're doing for them, all that sort of stuff. You technically shouldn't really have to enter much info in at all. Like, if this person comes through as a lead, then you've already got their details at that point. That should automatically feed straight through to the marketing system, to the sales system, and then you might add a little bit more information at the sales system, and then that feeds into the production system. We all laugh about the McDonald's system and how it's designed for dummies, but it's really ingenious, and there's nothing to be ashamed of thinking that way for your own business as well. No matter what you do, you can still be and hire the experts to work within that system. It's just going to make a business more money and make the customer have a better experience, if you've got all that stuff in place. The client should be informed and communicated in a systematic way. And what I mean by that is, sending out automatic emails with updates throughout the servicing or production process. Printing company is a great example here, where a printing process might be signing off on artwork, printing the items, like say business cards, and then shipping them out. The client should get a notification at each point to say, this is where your job's at. And that should all be automated from your system. Think of all little clever touch points that can happen there too. Like you might have a machine that takes a photo automatically at a certain point in production or service. Again, this is very broad and it's hard to give examples for everyone, but just little things like that are really cool. Like if you're building a car, like if you're building a European car, they might send you a photo from the factory. And that's just a little touch point in that production system that people really appreciate. And it creates that real affinity and, brand relevance with your company. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the system should be working hard for your business. So a great system means that you're doing less work. You're thinking about less things and they're being done for you. Your staff know what they're doing at all times. And all this efficiency that you would gain would obviously increase your turnaround times. It would increase your customer satisfaction. It would allow your business to scale and grow. And there's just a number of other reasons that you'd be doing this. Accountability. So I always think of trade businesses when I think of accountability. There's so many larger commercial companies, whether it be electrical or plumbing or, builders, you name it, where, tradies love to be, go a bit rogue sometimes. Both my brothers are plumbers and I know what they're like. And I think that, I guess, to have a lot more accountability is any business owner's dream. So, staff should have checklists in the systems. They should be easy to use. They should be able to take photos of their work, proof of the quality of their work and the fact they've done it. Massive one these days is safety. So having a system that allows your business or even your staff to prove that you've done all your checklists and due diligence with your swims and safety checklists, that's just invaluable. And we've built these apps for a number of clients, and one client's a scaffolding client, and they had WorkSafe do a random inspection on site, and they showed them the app and they go, no more to see. This is perfect. You want to track the time of your employees if you can as well. Again, this is all if it's relevant to you. Big one there is actually, if you can, having a system that uses GPS to track the location when they clock on and off as well. We've introduced systems into larger businesses and staff have been caught out clocking off and on at home, long after they've left for the day. So, the traditional way was to actually look at people's phone bills when they're making calls to see where they were. But that can all be done now with time tracking and GPS. You don't have to tell the staff that there's GPS in place. Don't hold them to that. There could be laws around that, but that's just my advice. Records should be easy to create, not a chore. So your staff, and even yourself as administrators and owners, need to be able to actually do things easily. It shouldn't be a chore. It should just be part of your workflow during the day. So if a system's actually, there's 5 steps to just get to one bloody thing, that's not really going to help people adopt a system that actually works really well. So everything should just be super easy to do, including entering information. There's apps out there and systems where people can just record their voice for a particular job, and it'll convert it into text and record and store that in that job or project. So, a lot of efficiencies to be available there. Now, big one is getting the system to be culturally accepted by management and staff. So you get a lot of square pegs in round holes sometimes when you introduce a new system or a better system. It's a good thing because you start to see all the problems in your business that you weren't aware of without the system. And there's also things you've got to do, especially around culture. If you've got like a fairly older audience, as in your staff, and they don't really want to use technology, that can be a curly one to get around. But I guess that comes down to making sure that, you're selling why you're doing it. And I guess it being a two-way street, a great deal means both parties win. So you got to think about that when you're installing a new system for your staff, that they're gonna have to be logging the iPads around compared to a piece of paper for the first time in their lives. Again, that's generalizing, but there's different businesses out there. Another big one for your production system is, it's a numbers game. It's pretty much, you want to be able to track your profitability on your jobs, from day one at each milestone of producing a job, whether it be a service or a product. A lot of companies don't track their profit until they've finished a job, which can be quite dangerous. You want to actually be, if possible, tracking your numbers or your profitability every day or even live, if you can have access to your profitability. And that's achievable if you can feed your materials into a system. You can feed in obviously the clocking on and off, and then your staff have their rates in there and also your quotes, and then that all meshes together to make sure the job's on track. And we always love to refer to what we call exception reporting, where you only need to know about something if it's a problem. You don't need to know everything. So you can actually send yourself reports from a good system to tell you that things are actually about to go off the rails, or it's a red flag if you're at 75% of what you quoted on day one and it's a 10-day job. That's definitely something that a good system can alert you to. You want to just review your projects and production regularly. So just having access to a good system remotely, even as a business owner or manager, to be able to see what everyone's doing on site or in your factory, or your service agents, whatever it may be, to be able to see everything that's going on pretty much live is actually quite easy to do these days. And even if a business owner want to go on holiday, being able to have access to the business from any location and see what everything's see what everything is doing, again, absolutely achievable and invaluable to have these days. It's also good to see which employees might be holding your business back as well. You might have someone in your business, a really nice bloke, but that can be let down. He might be the slowest one, and with a new system, you might see that he's not that profitable for the business. So you can have those conversations, and hiring a team myself, and I think we've got about a team of 11 or 12 at the moment. Sometimes you've got to have those difficult conversations with your staff, but if you've got something to hold them accountable to, that's just the best way to do it. It's not an emotional chat. It's a hey, this is exactly what's going on chat. You've got to improve this. So a really good system allows you to do that. The fourth system that a business would want to have, and again, a lot of businesses don't have this in place, is a feedback system. So when you finish a job or a service for a client, there's a way you can automate a feedback survey go to the client. So if you've dealt with a larger company, could be Qantas or RACV or something like that, you might have received a survey, even Telstra. I think we normally give them the 0, but they're improving slowly. There's different types of surveys, and the most common one is called NPS, which stands for Net Promoter Score. And it's basically where you get someone to rate your business from 0 to 10. And the term is typically, how likely are you to recommend our business to a friend or colleague? And the reason you would use an NPS survey is because it's scientifically proven that the scores that people give you are directly related to how they feel about your business. So a 9 or a 10 means that people are very likely to recommend your business and they're very happy. A 7 or an 8 means that they're passive, and that means that they're on the fence. So they're happy, but there's a few little things that they would want you to improve or they weren't happy about. So they might recommend you, but they might not. They're sort of on the fence. So that's what that score relates to. And then anything under a 7 basically means that you've got to improve. There's a problem. There was some breakdown in the experience for that customer, and they're letting you know that through the feedback. These systems can also then, after they've given that score, and by the way, you want to make sure that that score in the email they get is, they're able to leave the score in the actual email itself. So they don't have to click out of the email to then leave the score. You're going to get way less submissions. But once they do click the number in the email, and then they can then end up on a page that says, thank you for that score. We'd love more information as to why you gave us that score. So you can ask for additional feedback on the score. And for us personally, we've got a lot of jobs and work out of surveys, because what we've done in our business, we've set these to go out quarterly. So every quarter, a customer will get an email automatically asking them for a feedback from 0 to 10. And then that, it keeps you relevant, and that feedback is always up to date. From that survey that goes out automatically, you also get a trend line over time of how satisfied your clients are overall. So because they're scoring you from 0 to 10, you get this line, and it's either going down or up. And if it's going down, then you know that things need to change in your business. If it's going up, then you keep doing what you're doing well. You can also, off the back of getting a good score, you can send another follow-up from the system, provoking people to leave a great review or even refer a friend. So if you've got good feedback from a client, use that opportunity to ask for a favor. That's another thing I'd recommend as well. even with negative feedback, you'd want to invite people to actually have a conversation with you around how you could actually service them better next time. As much as they say the customer's always right, it's not always the case. But you still, for your reputation's sake, want to make someone feel like they've been heard, and take all feedback on board. That's basically all I could say around that. So you might automate these surveys around certain trigger points in your business or your system. So, you might say once a job has been dispatched or a client signed off on a service, wait 1 week, then send a survey. You might not just send an NPS, you might send another type of survey called a CSAT survey, where you send people a smiley face, a mediocre face, and a sad face. And it says, how happy were you with the service we provided? And they just click a smiley face, sad face, or a mediocre face. It's easy for someone to identify with one of those three. And then it will say, thank you, we'd love to know why you gave us that score. So you can trigger that one after you've done a project for them. And then you might also have the NPS going, which is that 0 to 10, just on autopilot all the time, if they're a regular customer. You can obviously decide for your business what combination you would want to use. So that's pretty much feedback systems. Another thing you want to do off the back of that is keep existing clients engaged. So a lot of businesses, if it's a project-based business or service-based business, they might do a job for someone once and then that's it. They forget about them. They serviced them 5 years ago. They're long gone. What you want to do is keep existing clients engaged. Existing clients are an absolute gold mine for businesses that a lot of businesses forget exist. So you want to be sending regular emails to your database, just to keep them up to date with your latest products and services, what the company is doing. And the traditional newsletter method is pretty much done and dusted now. What you want to be doing is segmenting your database. So you want to actually get people into different buckets as to what types of clients they are. So, McDonald's, as an example, has kids for Happy Meals. They've got tradie meals. They've got senior citizens. They've got families. They wouldn't send the same email out to a tradie that they would send to a senior citizen. So that's just a really raw example of how you might segment your database. The way you can segment your database is actually by sending out a survey with the chance to win a reward. And in that survey, you would ask them in just a series of questions, maybe 10 different questions saying, hey, what did you buy from us in the past? What size business are you? Are you still interested in what we do? Blah, blah, blah. And then you start to build profiles of all the people that submitted a survey, and then you can put them into different lists and send out different messages to those different types of clients regularly. So like if you're a plumber, you might have domestic clients, you might have builders, you might have commercial businesses. It really depends on your business and how many different types of clients you might service. You also want to obviously amplify word of mouth. So like I said before with the surveys, ask people to refer you. Make it easy for people to refer business to you as well. Create a form that someone can easily fill out with their friends' details or colleagues' details, and they get sent 10% off or something like that. Like really, a lot of people, they say to someone, please refer us, but they don't tell them how or make it easy. So if you can put something in place that makes it easy to refer, then that's definitely something I would recommend. That's pretty much it for existing clients and keeping them engaged. So the next thing I wanted to sort of talk about to get towards the end of our presentation was integration. So these 4 systems, your website, your sales and marketing, your production and your feedback are all great, but if they're not talking to one another, then that sort of makes it a bit more challenging to even bother having these systems. There's a lot of manual data entry. It's just not a pleasant experience for yourself, for your staff, or even your clients. So I'm going to talk about integrations and why you would integrate your systems. The reason you would integrate your systems is obviously to create efficiency gains across your entire business. So no brainer that you want information from system A to feed into system B, into C and into D, and then that might branch off into 0 or something like that. Imagine you could draft an invoice automatically after your product's been fulfilled prior to your feedback system. That's just one example. Or even having a lead come through your website into your sales system, and then automatically into your production system. Even asking clients for information automatically as the system goes along. So your team don't need to put in manual labor where it's not required. I think I always like to say with systems, where personal touch is required, you don't systemize. Where you don't need personal touch, you systemize and automate it. That's how I view that. So you also want to take away, obviously, margin for error. So if a system can replace something someone's doing manually, then why not automate it to get rid of the error? We have a great case study of a client who's a pharmaceutical business, and basically what would happen is a client would need to apply to be a client of theirs. So they do unlicensed drugs. So they might have pharmacists, doctors, etc., applying to become a client. They had a manual piece of paper, PDF, sorry. They would send their client. The client would print it out. They would fill it out with a pen. They would scan it. They would send it back to our client. Our client would then put it next to their computer. They would manually enter all the information into their system. They would then manually enter the exact same information into their inventory management system in their warehouse. And then that was the process to bring on a new client. What we did was basically create an online form. They would send a new client to apply. That would then feed into their CRM. They'd get a notification saying, here's a new client for you to approve. They would either click approve or decline. If they click approve, it would automatically enter that information from the form that filled out into their CRM. It would then also automatically synchronize that with their inventory management system. So they just had to press an approve button and that was it. Compared to their old way of doing things, which was sending the client a PDF, the client would fill it out, scan it, send it back. They would handwrite that into 2 systems. That just saves them huge amounts of efficiency gain. They typically have 20 to 30 clients a month applying. So that just took a huge amount of their time out of having to be a part of that process. And it also takes away the margin for error. So, a lot of people's handwriting, especially doctors in the pharmaceutical industry, are known to be great. So that just took that margin of error out of that as well. So there's a number of reasons you would integrate your systems, but I think it's quite obvious. It's a no-brainer to integrate all these systems. And again, you want to create that super system in your business where you've got a system to cover every part of that business journey or the customer journey, and then your staff's journey as well. It's all seamless. And again, all this stuff is readily available now. It's not expensive, depending if you don't want it to be. Every system, as I said earlier, has its place in the market, and there's these teams and businesses that do really, really well at what they do. You get the benefit of having all those separate systems at a low cost and bringing them all in and connecting them all together to create an awesome system. So just again, what are some of the things you should integrate? Obviously your website, your CRM, your database, your marketing automation, your production, even like your social media and, your Google and all that stuff, that all plugs in as well. So you can get all the stats straight in. Some businesses have like a portal or an intranet or a members area that can all plug in as well. We look after a large kindergarten organisation on the peninsula. They've got an intranet that we built and all of that plugs in to all their other systems. So it's like an area that their staff can, download documents. There's a calendar of events. Got a notice board they can communicate, and again, all that feeds in. Other things, like I said, your accounting software, inventory management. It's probably actually on my next slide. How do you integrate the systems? The main way that you integrate is with what they call an API. Now, this is getting a little bit technical, but an API is basically, it stands for an application programming interface. Most great systems have an API. That basically is like a language that can be pulled and pushed from different systems and connected together to transfer information. So Xero has an API which allows any third-party system to pull that information into Xero or push it back. So I can just see Robert's actually jumped off, so I'll talk to him after this. Appreciate his time. You can use third-party connectors to connect these systems together, such as PySync or Zapier. They're very well-known connection programs. You can also create a custom integration, and that's something we do a fair bit of. Sometimes Zapier or PySync don't fit the bill, or a lot of these software suites have different licensing levels. Sometimes we can bypass that by doing a custom integration. So we've done that as well. And then there's also all-in-one system. So, not shying away from it, we're a HubSpot partner here at Modern Visual. HubSpot is a system that covers your marketing, your sales, and your feedback all in one. And it can even cover your website as well. So you sort of don't want, always your system to be built by one company, because, as I said earlier, you want to get the specialist expertise from different companies that are good at what they do. But, companies like HubSpot are actually big enough to be good at the 3 core systems. So if your systems can be in one, like your marketing and your sales, then the information transfers seamlessly. You're not having to integrate more systems. The less systems you can integrate, the better, but it's a balancing act. So that's just something to think about. We've sort of come to the end of the presentation now. I'd be pretty keen to see if anyone had any questions. I can see there Robert had a question. What is the entry price for a CRM? Really good question. I guess to jump into the one that we're familiar with the most, HubSpot. The HubSpot CRM is actually free. You don't have to pay for it. So you can just download that at HubSpot.com. The way they do it is, obviously the CRM is free, and then you can bolt on different tools to it, like the marketing package or, more of a sales package. And most of the starter packages you bolt on are about $70 a month or even less. So again, this stuff, like I mentioned earlier, can be quite affordable. Was there any other questions?
So I mean, the integration piece is certainly something that I'm really keen on learning more about in a big way. Like I said, the subscription-based business that we're going to be starting it's very much a low entry fee and looking for a real high volume. So that's really why, from a pain point of view, I just don't want that to exist. And I want it to be, like you said, you want everything to be as seamless as possible. I mean, nowadays, it really doesn't take much for someone to turn off for something, right? As soon as they get one barrier to entry, it's sort of put in the too hard pile, yeah? So when it comes to the integration piece, you talked about how, because obviously Xero does invoicing and all that sort of stuff, and I've got Xero accounts for my businesses that I've got up to now. So could you run an integration and use Xero as sort of a recurring payment system, like as a recurring fee system as well, or no?
Yeah, you definitely can. We personally, with our business, use Xero with recurring payments, and we use a payment gateway provider called Pin Payments. They're based in WA. So that's plugged into Xero, and that covers recurring payments. Xero also have their own credit card processing facility built in. So there's no reason you couldn't, build like a website that hooks into Xero to create recurring payments. It's definitely possible and quite straightforward.
Right. Okay. Because I mean, it's and the other really good point that you bring up is making sure that existing data then works for you at every point in your process, right? So making sure that you can remarket to the data that's been put into your system in the sales system, making sure that then drops into your marketing system without double handling and cocking it up and having the podgy human thing get in the way of a really good business model. It's like I said, I do marketing bits for small businesses, but when it comes to seamless integration, I mean, I clearly don't do the scale that you guys do, and I think for what we've got coming up, I think it's definitely going to be something that your expertise will come in real handy.
Oh, sounds good, mate. Appreciate it. I think the way I like to describe what we do, it's everything that happens after traffic. So, a traditional marketing company will look after your Facebook ads, your Google ads, your SEO, your print media, all the marketing based stuff that gets people to your business.
Yeah.
These systems that I mentioned today or tonight, they cover everything that happens after that. And to be honest, they're the systems that typically don't get much love. There's always people out there trying to sell you SEO or Facebook ads, or there's plenty of digital marketing companies out there flogging that to death, but they don't really care so much about what happens after that. And that's where, again, I guess we come in.
And I think that's what's really appealing is you guys talk about the customer journey and how important and critical it is to make that as smooth as silk. And that I think that's absolutely fab. I really do. Awesome. I really, really do. But no, very, very good presentation, man. Yeah, super clear, super concise.
Awesome. No, I appreciate the feedback. Well, I'll wrap it up there. And if anyone wanted to reach out to me after this, I'm more than happy to have a connection and take the conversation further. But I'll wrap it up there. And thank you again. I really appreciate everyone being here.
Thanks ever so much.
Thank you. See ya.